Hey guys, what's up? So, in this lesson, I'll be teaching about the important topics which you needed to follow, which you have to have a strong grasp over in order to get good marks in Modern Indian History segment. This is presented by me, Roman Seni. Do watch the part 1.1 before you watch this, and do follow me on an academy. This is the link of my user profile. See, when it comes to modern Indian history, time and again in last 5 to 10 years, you will see that the main focus area remains the analysis. Okay, it's no longer the wars, it's no longer the dynasties, it's no longer the who was the son of which king, it's no longer what was the capital of that kingdom, but it is rather focus on the art and culture, which is a part of more of ancient and medieval India, but it is as important in modern India. People don't realize that. Then, what are the important events and watershed moments? Watershed moments, for example, 1857 revolt is a watershed moment. Before that, the rule was under East India Company. After that, officially, it was the British Raj from 1858 till 1947. Some mass movements like civil disobedience movement, Quit India movement, which were led by like Indian leaders like Swaraj and non-cooperation movement. So all these movements you must be knowing, right? Then various ideologies like what is left, what is right, what is center, what were the ideologies of Muslims, when did the demand of Pakistan started, when did the communalism started in India, and important political and other leaders. For example, Bhagat Singh, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Mahatma Gandhi. What was the role of them in India's freedom struggle? Whether positive or negative, that does not matter. But what was the actual role? Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, Rabindranath Tagore, Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay, so many people to name. Sarojini Naidu, Baba Sahib Ambedkar. It's like too many of them to be named right now, but you needed to know their main role. What was their philosophy? What was their ideology? What was their mode of resistance or mode of action against the Britishers? Then you need to focus on specific classes. Okay, what was the role of women in India's freedom struggle? What was the status of women in that contemporary society? Were they adequately represented or not? Then what was the role of peasants in India's struggle? What was the role of working class? Okay, what was the role of tribals? What was the role of minorities like Muslims, Sikhs, Jains, Jews, Christians, and whatnot? Then what was the role of scheduled caste? How they were perceived in the pre-independence era? Were they given their due? Were they allowed to participate in the independence movement? Were they allowed to even participate in the day-to-day activities? So all this needs to be focused based on the specific class. This is how you should read. You should not read by chronology. That is a very bad way of studying stuff in history. You should focus on certain area and then also focus on chronology. But the focus area should be clear first. Then what were the specific departments? What were the specific domains? Okay, for example, what was the status of education? How did it evolve? For example, 300 years ago, before that, there was no formal legalized educational system in India. So then came the Britishers, and then it was all legalized and it was all formalized. Earlier, we had very high standards of education, but unfortunately, it was not very codified. Then how did press evolution happen? When did the machine came? What were the type of newspapers? Were vernacular newspapers more, or were English newspapers more? Were they allowed to print whatever they want to, or was there a censorship involved? How did it actively participated in India's independence? Then princely state was a completely parallel India, which was not directly under Britishers' rule. They were completely a feudal society, most of them anyway. They were very backward. The state of the people was very bad as compared to the British India, sad to say. In many of the princely states, it would have been good in some, but in most it was really pathetic. So people don't know what is princely state. Okay, so usually they are not aware that only 50, 60, 70% of the India was under Britishers, while the rest of the India was still not directly controlled by them. Then various religions, various reforms like temple reforms, Gurudwara reforms, and whatnot. You need to understand all that. Then various social reforms like sati, widow remarriage. All this was going on parallelly, increasing the age of marriage. That was a very big contention. See, child marriage was a norm in India. Till now, in like states like Rajasthan, more than 40% of the females get married before they actually are legally allowed to. So child marriage was very much part of Indian tradition. So social reform, like it was a lot of pressure which was felt to the legal authorities by the local people. So how was that incorporated in India's independence struggle? Various organizations, I'll not name one or two, but there are lots of organizations which you need to understand. Then various socio-political ideologies. When did actually the left, so-called left ideology started in India? Marxism, Leninism, communism. Okay, so all this needs to be understood. What was their origin? Then world wars from Indian perspective. It is very, very, very important that you understand the world wars from Indian perspective. Like how did we feel? Like, so you need to know basically all these major stuff. Then during that time you will know Indian National Congress. Was it actually the safety valve theory or is it something else? There is a separate chapter in Vipin Chandra if you go. So chapter number 4 talks about the foundation, the myth, and the chapter 5 talks about actually the reality. Then there was the drain wealth theory by Dadabhai Naroji. Okay, RP Dutt, RC Dutt, and all these people were there involved. Then the Swadeshi movement, then split in the Congress. Okay, then the Indian Renaissance I have already talked about. Then pre-Gandhian era usually talked about the Swadeshi movement during 1905, partition of Bengal, then its rescinding, then the split in the Congress, Surat split. You all know these things, right? So everybody knows, but you need to. Then the okay, then the era of revolutionary nationalists, then the World War I, the Gadar movement, the Home Rule movement. You all know these things, right? Non-cooperation movement. So you needed to understand the causes, the main event, what was their impact, what was their aftermath, what was their background over which they evolved, were they successful or not, various movements which happened, working class movement, peasant movement, all these you know. Then the finally the civil disobedience movement, the importance of Karachi session in 1931. Okay, then actually the start of left wing in India. Then why did the Congress resign after being elected? That is a 2.5 years of Congress rule was there. Just before World War I they resigned. Okay, so you know all these things. Press, education, changes in India's governance after 1857, a very, very important topic. Actually the start of British Raj from this. I've already spoken about the economic impact of colonialism. Then in 1940s Gandhiji's impact was reduced to bit extent. Then which were the parties who were calling the shot, etc. Then we comes to this. This is the third. This was in priority list. Okay, I'm telling everything in priority list. So the first two slides were very important. This is slightly less important. For example, civil services in British era. How were they appointed? Then the parallel Indian princely states. Then the tribal uprisings. You should have a brief idea. Then peasants uprising, civil revolts, working class movements. Then finally you need to focus on these areas as well. Okay, so what was Dutch India, what was the Portuguese India? Okay, most of the people have absolutely no idea that even Denmark, Norway, they used to rule India. For example, Sirampur is a district in West Bengal. It was under this Denmark, Norway, the Danish India. Then the Nicobar Islands of Andaman and Nicobar were under them. Then various town in Tamil Nadu were under them. Then French were very, very like French were direct competitor of Britishers. All the South Indian wars were fought between French and Britishers. So a lot of history goes there. Portuguese had the other Nagar Haveli, Goa, etc. So then you need to also touch upon Marathas a bit, okay, in the Carnatic War, and finally the Eastern India and Northeast. Don't ignore these three topics completely, although they are not asked that much these days. Okay, so now what is left is selective reading. So I'll tell you the source in next lesson. That is the best from everything. Now, very, very important. History is like an ocean, okay, literally an ocean. There are books written on like Revolt of 1857. There are thousand pages book written on that. So obviously you can't read everything, right? 99% of the stuff you have to filter it out. Then how to go about previous year question papers, like which to solve. You don't need to solve 1995 paper. They are absolutely redundant now. Then how to approach MCQs. There is a very interesting way of how to approach history MCQs and how to write answers in mains. Then finally the best source to practice, which test series to join, and if there is any good online material available or not. So all this will be touched upon in subsequent lessons. I hope you like this. Do share it with your friends and do let me know how you like it in the comments below. Thank you for watching this lesson. Have an awesome day.